What are the best competitions to play in Sorare 26? I've been asking myself this question over the last few weeks, gearing up towards game week 1, which will be kicking off in the next 3 days or so. We've got the return of the Premier League, La Liga, all the big leagues, bar the Bundesliga. On Sorare, Bundesliga starts a week later, but yeah, it's kind of crunch time right now. We've seen loads of new leagues and new cards be released on Sorare over the last couple of weeks, and yeah, I've got stuck into some of the new cards, and it's been a weird challenge in the sense of, like, yeah, even for myself, who I've been playing for nearly 5 years now. Like, what are the best competitions to play in Sorare 26? Basically, hopefully we'll answer that question in today's video, lads. If you do enjoy, please do leave it a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel. There is a link in the description below if you are brand new and you want to sign up to Sorare. I think you'll get £150, dollars or euros worth of market credits if you want to get stuck in. Use those on auctions and instant buy. You can't do them on secondary manager sales, sadly. So yeah, I'm going to go through every competition that is available to play in Sorare 26. Right, so we'll start off with the obvious one then. Premier League competition on Sorare. You can play it in technically 4 scarcities if we're talking like the common mode as well, which is free to play. That's a completely different kettle of fish to like the actual game of Sorare, where you can win cash and cards, and but yeah, limited is like the lowest scarcity you can play. There's some massive rewards on offer in the Premier League, right? So $2,500 for the first prize pool of this weekend. Top 250 you'll get cash. There's essence paid down to 3,000 places. There's currently 5,000, just under 5,400 players right now. That will increase. There's still 3 days or so to the deadline. And yeah, there is the hot streak boost right now. So if you play the first week of the Premier League, La Liga, Ligue 1, and Bundesliga, but Bundesliga is next week. If you play, like, if you have a team in the Premier League in-season competition, you are eligible to win 5x the normal amount of rewards. So normally it would be if your team hits over 360 points, you normally hit $5. This time around it'll be 25, and if you like hit the first streak, you've then got a chance to get 5x for the second streak, which is $50, and you can kind of keep rolling it over until you like don't hit it. And if you hit all five consecutively, you win what's that, like £6,300 or dollars or whatever. So yeah, massive sort of massive rewards at stake there. Of course, if you don't hit it, you'll be back to normal rewards. So say if you hit the first one, so you win $25, and then you fail to hit the second one, and you don't win $50, you just win nothing, effectively. You'll go back to the first one, but you'll only be able to win $5 at that point. So it's like a one-shot sort of go at it. But yeah, Premier League prices, I mean, they're the most expensive right now on Sorare, and that kind of is, that's been the trend over the years, really. Yeah, it's there's definitely a barrier to entry, with the Premier League stuff. It's the most sort of sought after league on the game. From a scoring perspective, like, I wouldn't say it's the most the highest scoring league. Like, it has like, of course, the best players in the world for the most part. But as far as like Sorare scoring and how the matrix works, yeah, there is some really good scorers. Your Cole Palmers, we're hoping Florian Wirtz, your Salahs, Haalands, and Bruno Fernandes, for example. Like, there's obviously some really good players. Rodri when he's fit. On the whole, it's just because it's such a competitive league now. The Prem, there's no standout sort of PSV or a Bayern in the Bundesliga. So for me, I think it's quite tricky personally to play Sorare 26 Premier League, just because, even if you've got the best card, yeah, they're going to have, great matchups like Man City at home to, I don't know, Sunderland or whatever, right? You expect them to score pretty well there. And for those big teams, your Man City's, Liverpool's, Chelsea's, maybe United's, yeah, you will have, more good opportunities to score well than if you were, a Brentford or maybe a Sunderland stack. And that's not to say the Brentford and Sunderland stacks can't, pop off in their specific game week. But yeah, for me, like, I do love the Prem. Like, I do have Premier League card. I don't have any in-season ones right now. But for me, there's just too much of a barrier to entry. And I don't love the league. Like, I don't support anyone in the Prem. And that would be a big reason, I think, for somebody to come in and play Premier League is, I'm a Brighton fan. Let me go, I want to play fantasy football. I want to, win a bit of cash, win a bit of whatever, cards and collectibles and stuff. Like, this is kind of the perfect place to do it. But I don't have an affiliation to a Premier League club. So, like, for me, I don't seek that need to play it. Now, that's not the only reason I buy other leagues and teams, right? Like, I don't support Nice, for example, but I have an in-season Nice stack in Ligue 1. So I'm not saying that applies to everything, but for the Premier League and the price point it's at, And I'm sure the price point will come down once the 5 time streak comes down, and that's not a thing anymore. Because like after the first game week, if you don't set a lineup, the 5x streak's gone effectively for those that didn't get involved. So prices on paper should be lower, but who knows, right? It depends on how those players perform game week 1. But yeah, Premier League, there is definitely a barrier to entry. It can be a lot of fun. It can be very rewarding. Like, I don't want to put you off playing Premier League. If you've got the budget for it, if you've got the thirst for it, by all means give it a shot. But for me, there's too much of a barrier, and I don't have, like I said, I don't really have an affiliation to any of the clubs there. Although I will be playing, like I have Premier League cards, like I mentioned. I'll be playing them in classic competitions, which is obviously separate from in season. But moving over to the Ligue 1 comp. So Ligue 1 prices look, pretty fine right now compared to Premier League. Like, there is a bit of value on offer, for example. I've bought into a Nice stack, which I can show you right now. I already had the classic keeper, so I didn't have to spend on the keeper, which was nice, which was Diouf, who played for Reims last year. But as you can see, I had the Nice stack last year, so I bought into the whole Nice collection last year. I was number 1 collector, and I've obviously got the bug this year again. I've only bought like a team's worth, so I have Tom Luche, Sofiane Diop, 2 midfielders, Bouanahi, and then Dante as the defender. And then, I think obviously Diouf doesn't have a Nice card on his card, but he plays for Nice now. And I can still use him, which is great. So I'll be using him this weekend, alongside those 4 Nice cards. Looking to hit the 4x streak in rare, that is. I don't play limited, but limited's obviously a lot. If you're watching this and you're brand new, limited scarcity is just a lot cheaper than it is in rare, because there's just more cards to go around. For the most part. So yeah, I'm excited for Ligue 1 comp. Like I said, there's a 5x streak in there. So yeah, really hoping we can hit the streak this weekend. They have a good fixture at home to Toulouse, so you never know. I'm giving myself a decent chance. I'm not buying like the creme de la creme of Nice players. There is better ones. Like, for example, Jonathan Klaus as a defender. He's probably the best defender you'd want. But for the first game week, I don't really want to be spending that much, for the first one, because prices are inflated in general. And I just didn't want to, like, if I don't hit the streak, I'll be annoyed that I paid like 5x streak price and not hit it. So yeah, I'm going the cheaper route, but like, I still fancy myself to hit 400 points there, I think, if things fall into place. So yeah, if you've got a thirst for for Ligue 1, I think there's some really nice options as far as like teams go. And then you don't even have to full stack, right? You can have 2 cards from Nice, 2 cards from PSG, and whatever you want to really do. You're not like restricted on just stacking, but I'm just doing it because it was the cheapest option for me right now. But yeah, of course, like, prizes aren't as lucrative as they are in the Premier League, for example. Like, in limited, the top you can win is 2,000, which is still insane. Like, Premier League was 2.5k for the first week, but yeah, it's a little bit less, but not too much less. And then on top of that, like, so technically you could win $2,000 dollars in limited this weekend in Ligue 1 comp, and you could win the 25. I know $25 isn't much when you win in 2,000. You don't really care, but you win both. Like, you win the streak and you win the leaderboard cash if you finish in as high as possible in the leaderboards. The streaks are basically an old threshold. If you're watching this and you were around in the threshold days, you don't have to worry about what anyone else is doing. It's just your 5 guys, and whatever they score, if they score above the threshold or the streak, you win that cash. Moving on to La Liga comp. So this is the third and final sort of top 5 league on Sorare this weekend. We do have Bundesliga coming next weekend. There's no Serie A comp this year. There's no Serie A license. But yeah, I am excited to play La Liga. Of course, your Real Madrid and Barcelona stacks are expensive, as anyone would obviously imagine. Even Atletico Madrid, like, there's some really punchy prices on those cards, and it kind of makes sense, right? They're very dominant in the league, and there's a bit of a drop off after those top sort of 3-4 teams in La Liga. So you're paying a hefty sum, but at the same time, like, you've got to fancy yourself. If you've got Barca, Real cards, even obviously Atletico as well, you're going to give yourself a chance of hitting those big streaks, and maybe even climbing the leaderboard cash as well. That's not to say you can't go and do a budget stack, right? Like, I'm not saying you have to go out and buy the most expensive cards on this game to have success. It obviously helps. Like, there's a reason why they're more expensive. But at the same time, there is opportunities for budget stacks and even just budget cards in general, with the right fixture, with the right game week. It can all come together, and it can compete with some of the bigger stacks. Like, for example, my goal this season was to try and utilize my Super A Yamal that I won a couple of months ago last year. my big goal was, can I get a team around Sorare Yamal to where like I can really utilize him and try and win some big cash, because I'll show you the Sorare comp in a minute, because Sorare and Unique are combined now if you're watching and didn't know. So yeah, I've had that Yamal for a few months now. I brought in a classic Unique Gaia for like 130 quid a few months ago as my defender. I then brought in a couple of midfielders, in-season midfielders, in the form of Pablo Fornals, of course, of Betis. I got my goalie in of Oviedo, Aaron Escandel. Like, I don't have a budget to where I can go out and buy, Pedris and, the massive Real Madrid and Barca players in season. I just don't have that budget. So I've worked my way into an in-season La Liga team for this weekend on a bit of a budget, right? I mean, it's still a lot of money, but in comparison to, like, for example, Yamal in season yesterday, like this card, but in season went for $10,000, right? I just don't have that sort of money. Luckily, I have a classic Yamal, which I can use, but then I needed 3 in-season cards to go with them. So yeah, I think Escandel was like 170, Fornals was 270, and Puado was 300. So it's still, a good amount of money, don't get me wrong, to spend on JPEGs. But at the same time, like, technically every... sorry, I've got a couple of them up for sale right now. I don't want to sell them. I've just got them up just in case I get any nibbles. But like, look at the prize pool. Like, I would get 25% rewards boost as well on this. So technically, if I finish first, I would win $5,000, which is just insane, right? Like, ridiculous. Like 5x in my returns in one game week. Now, I'm not really fighting for that top prize, to be honest, because I don't really think I have the cards to do so. But I really think like top 10, between 10 and 20th. If I can hit that a couple of times a season, I'll be in the money, and that's kind of the goal with the budget La Liga stack that I've got. So yeah, excited to see how that works. Like I said, if you're a fan of a La Liga team and want to get involved, I do. I think the La Liga comp is really fun. You don't have to worry about Premier League teams. It's a single league comp, and that's the big thing about Premier League, Liga, and La Liga. And we'll get on to Jupiler League and Eredivisie soon. But those 3 comps, like, you don't have to worry about any... Like, if you're playing in the Premier League comp and you've got a Brighton stack, you don't have to worry about what Barcelona do that week. Where last year there was a comp called Champion Europe, where it was an in-season competition, but it combined all 5 of the top leagues. So if you did have a Brighton stack, you were up against the Barcelona stack, which is, you just up against it, right? It's tough enough being up against like the good Man City players, the good Man United players, the good Chelsea players, if you're Brighton, right? But this time round, it's all segregated, and I think it's great. Like last year, we did have in season, La Liga, Premier League, and stuff. Nothing's really changed there. We didn't have Liga 1. That's a new comp for Sorare 26. So yeah, there is obviously a lot of benefits to playing those single league comps. There is a barrier to entry, like they are expensive to play in comparison to, which we'll get into, like Challenger and Contender. So yeah, but I do really like them, and if you can make them work, by all means go ahead. Then we've got Belgium. I've got involved in Belgium rare cards, or in season rare cards. Sorry, unfortunately didn't hit the 3rd streak this weekend. I think I've spent like £400 on Belgium cards. I have a lot of classic Belgium cards from last season, so I can use, of course, one of them. Like I can use one Hans van Aken in my in-season lineup, for example. And yeah, like I said, I hit the first 2 streaks quite comfortably, but I struggled on the 3rd one. So I'm back to square one this weekend, hoping I can hit a streak. I'll probably go into this weekend with something like that. And yeah, prices in Belgium in compared to like Premier League, La Liga, and Liga 1 are a lot cheaper. Like you can get more value for your money in those comp, or especially in the Bundesliga. In the Jupiler League comp in Belgium, there is just a lot. Like your money will just go further there. They've been out for a little while now, so like for example, they've minted like 300 of cards. Like there's already 300. Lamens, who's the Antwerp keeper, he's been out for a while now, for a couple of weeks. So, prices have come down, which is, not a bad thing. Yeah, you've missed out on the first few weeks, but that's fine. Like, you can always get involved at any point in the season. And yeah, there's some good teams. Like, Anderlecht have looked pretty good so far. Genk, the same. Club Brugge are always pretty punchy. Standard Liège have looked pretty good, I would say, so far. Mechelen are always steady eddies. And obviously USG as well, Saint Galois are always a very good team as well. So there's a lot of options in Belgium, and there's some good scorers on even the sort of lesser teams in the league. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Belgium. Like if you can stomach not playing like one of the big competitions, there's still decent money and stuff on offering. Like for example, in Limited, you can win in Division 1, you can win $1,000, right? So it's obviously less than the big 3 leagues that we've gone through. but still, the prices are cheaper, right? So it's all relative, and that's that goes for the Eredivisie comp as well. I have got involved in Eredivisie rare and super rare so far. In season, I hit the first streak this weekend in rare. There's no streaks in super rare. They haven't done the prize pool yet, but the prize pool is normally a bit better than Belgium. Again, you can find decent amount of value in the Eredivisie. Now, of course, there is some like really standout teams in Eredivisie. PSV, for example, Feyenoord, even Ajax. PSV are probably the standout though. Again, like they have been for a few years. Don't get me wrong; those prices are hefty. Like they're not cheap even at limited. I don't think. Like you spend like Maro Jr. is a good player. He's 25 quid alone, right? So, and he's definitely not the best PSV player. He's a good player, but he's definitely not the most expensive. So you're looking probably for a couple £100, I would say, for a PSV stack, for example. But you're probably this is not financial advice, but you've got if you've got a PSV stack, I know other people have them as well. But if you've got some PSV players, you've obviously got a chance of hitting good rewards, right? Like you might not want to have the same 5 as everyone, like the most popular 5 players, because if your stack has less collection bonus and less XP than the other PSV stacks, and they're the exact same players, well, you're just impossible to pass them. Like, you can't be higher in the leaderboard than them. Now, of course, on streaks, that doesn't matter. But for leaderboard cash, competing for those big prizes, if you spend good money on good cards, like, I think you want to differentiate it. Maybe you go 4 PSV players and 1 really good Ajax player or 1 really good Feyenoord player. It all depends on the on the game week and stuff. But I'm just sort of saying that like mixing it up sometimes isn't a bad thing, because it does differentiate you on the leaderboards. We've got MLS. MLS is almost over, so I'm quite happy to gloss over MLS right now because it's not like a European league. You can still play it. Like, don't get me wrong, I play MLS in rare and limited right now. But there's only like 8 games left, so like I don't really want to sort of talk on that because like it is what it is. Like it's probably too late to get into the MLS right now, if I'm being honest. So now we've got champion, challenger, and contender. It's quite like not frustrating. It's quite sort of confusing here in a way. Like challenger and contender are both in season competitions, whereas champion is a classic comp, meaning that you don't win cash in this competition. All you can win is essence or cards. It's SO7, so it's like 7 players, not 5. Every classic comp on Sorare this year is SO7. So you need 7 cards, which is a bit of a barrier. Now, don't get me wrong. Classic cards are obviously cheaper than in-season cards, right? I think that goes without saying. You find classic cards on the secondary market. They're older cards, basically. I'm just looking at some champion cards now in limited, for example. Like the price difference will be like probably 10x. Like let me just get an example, like a decent player. I was going to say Colwell, but that doesn't really make too much sense now. He's done his ACL. Like Trippier there. Trippier's 51 pence, right? For his classic, card. If we go to see Trippier's in-season card at limited as well, I can guarantee you it's a lot more expensive than that. So limited, in-season, it's like, it's £8 floor. So, what's that, 16 times more expensive for the in-season. Now, of course, the in-season card has more opportunity to win cash and stuff. So, there is a reason for that. Your in-season cards turn to classic cards after 1 season, basically. That's kind of the cycle now. You can use them in classic, forever until they sort of retire. But champion is a comp that I'm going to be playing. Like I have a lot of champion rare cards from previous seasons. I've been playing for 5 years, so you just accumulate cards over the years. For example, Bart Verbruggen. Like I still have Premier League classic cards. My beloved Nico Williams. This is where you can hopefully win essence and cards. The cards you win, of course, are in season, right? So the idea is use classic cards to win in season cards. Again, in theory, it makes sense. In practice, it's not easy to do, right? There's 2,000 players right now fighting for 50 cards, and that 2,000 players is going to increase. Of course, you can win essence and stuff, of course, but it's not easy. Basically, is what I'm getting at. Even in limited, but the barrier to entry is a lot less. So if you are looking to start this game, but you don't really fancy spending money on in season cards, I think playing classic is not a bad idea to get your feet wet. I really don't. I'm not saying you're going to go out and win loads, but you'll gain a lot of experience. And you'll do it. I always say to people who begin playing Sorare and stuff, like, you want to fail as cheap as possible. Like when I first came on the platform, I bought so many stupid cards, I didn't know what I was doing. It took me months to even understand Sorare. So I think the best thing to do, like, you shouldn't just rush in and buy loads of in-season cards without knowing what you're really doing and how players score points and all that, jazz. This is turning into a bit of a beginner's guide, so we'll see. But yeah, like as far as champion goes, like you want to win champion in season cards. Like through this, I could win, a Cole Palmer, for example. I can win Premier League cards. I can win Bundesliga cards. I can win La Liga cards and obviously Ligue 1. So it's a really nice way of doing it in theory. In practice, like I said, it's not easy to do. But if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So that goes without saying. Then we get into the two sort of, in-season competitions in Challenger and Contender that don't have, they're not single leagues, basically. So Challenger is made up of Portugal, Austria, as you can see here, Denmark, the Scottish League, I said, Serie A is confusing, right? You can actually play Serie A cards in Challenger and Champion Classic because Serie A doesn't have its own in-season comp. Kind of confusing there. But yeah, it's made up of these six leagues. The Danish Super League is in there as well. And like the barrier to entry in Challenger is just way less expensive than it is in any of the, the Prem, La Liga, Bundesliga, La Liga comps. Any of those comps, they all like points per pound or pounds per point. Like it's just a lot cheaper to get in. Now I'm not saying it's super cheap. Like Celtic cards still go for a lot of money. Rangers, for example, Porto. There's some big clubs in the league. Galatasaray, Fenerbahce. Like there's a lot of leagues to sort of worry about in that sense. Like in the single league comp, if you've got a Man City stack, you only kind of need to worry about, maybe Chelsea, Arsenal or United on a given game week if they've got good fixtures. Whereas if I'm playing Challenger, for example, and I have a Galatasaray stack, which is, a good team to have, well, I've got to worry about Fenerbahce. I've got to worry about Benfica. I've got to worry about Porto, Sporting, Rangers, Celtic, Trabzonspor, Midtjylland. Like there's just a lot. It's just a bigger league, right? Or there's multiple leagues compared to one league. So of course it's going to be more competitive. The fact that it's more competitive means it's kind of cheaper on the whole. Like it would be cheaper to get a Galatasaray stack than it would a Man City stack. Of course you can win less and you don't have to play against, other champion teams if you're Man City. You don't have to play against Barca stacks and Real Madrid stacks. So but this is the thing, like I really like Challenger and Contender for that reason. Like I like the fact that it's a bit cheaper. There is a bit of a like knowledge gap there. Like if you're not into those leagues, then I guess, it's not easy to kind of like sign yourself up for. But it's not the hardest thing in the world to go get a Celtic stack or a Rangers stack or split stack and whatever. Galatasaray, like these teams playing Champions Leagues, right? They're obviously very good teams. Now, of course, as you can see, this is Division 1, for example, this weekend. $900 for the winner. Of course, there's streaks in every in-season comp, can I just sort of say. The streak amounts, like what you can win are obviously less, but there's still a pretty penny if you can hit them. But like I said, the barrier to entry in Challenger, and we'll go on to Contender now, is just a lot less than it is any other league that we've gone through so far because they're not a single league comp, if that makes sense, right? They're made up of a load of different leagues. And as you can see, Contender is basically every other league that exists in the world on Sorare that isn't in any of the other comps. So you've got like K-League, J-League, the Norwegian League, you've got Croatian League, Argentinian League, Bundesliga 2, Ligue 2, the Brazilian League, Liga Mekis, or the Mexican League, the Russian League, Swiss League. It goes on. Even the championships down here as well. Championship used to be in Challenger, but it's moved over to Contender now. Again, you've got streaks, you've got cash on podiums, and all the stuff that you would expect in any other in-season comp. As you can see, the cash is a little bit less again, so Challenger cash is more than Contender. So, as far as all these leagues I've gone through goes, Contender is where you'll win the least as far as like what's on offer. But it goes back to what I've been saying all along, especially with Challenger, the barrier to entry is just a lot less. Like you will be spending a lot less money in Contender, like Bundesliga 2 teams and Ligue 2 teams and Croatian League teams. Now, I understand there's a knowledge gap there. Like, if you haven't been playing this game for a while or you don't support any of these clubs or leagues, like, it is just quite tough to get involved. Like, if you're a Premier League fan and you know nothing about any of these leagues in, Contender, I'm not saying you shouldn't go and explore them. Like, I think you should. But the barrier is quite tough, Like, if I'm a Premier League fan, like I said, like, knowing much about Rijeka or Lokomotiva Zagreb or whatever, like, it's just hard, right? But all you need to do is really like scout their scores. Like you can do that on SofaScore, you can do that obviously on Sorare as well. Like I'm not saying it's impossible, but there is that like, I don't know if this player is going to play this weekend and stuff. Like there is jeopardy in that sense. Like there's just less information available. Basically, is the way I'd probably sort of close off that part. But yeah, I don't mind Contender. I'm more of a Challenger boy. Like I don't really like the fact that there's so many leagues to worry about in Contender, which makes it fun. but at the same time, like, you've got so much to worry about. Like, if your 5 players have done well, like, there's so many other teams have to play over the weekend for you to stay in that, that good position, for example. Now, of course, streaks, doesn't matter what anyone else does. It's your 5 players against the streak, which is great. So that's like half the way to win money on a weekend. It's leaderboard cash and obviously streaks. But yeah, if you're fans of these clubs, if you're a Braunschweig fan in Bundesliga 2 and stuff, it's an amazing way to support your club and get involved this way. But like I said, I'm more of a challenger fan than I am, contender, just because there's just so many teams to worry about in contender, sorry. And then we get on to the remainder of the classic competition. So U23, under 23 has been my bread and butter all, from the dawn of time on Sorare for me. I love under 23s. You can play any card in the world as long as they're under the age of 23, which is fun, right? It's a classic competition, so you have to play SO7. You need 7 players, goalkeeper, 2 defenders, 2 mids, a forward and an extra player. Of course, you can win cards from anywhere in the world effectively, right? You don't really get to choose who they are, but this is like, for example, the best under 23s right now. The best champion, like the best like Bundesliga Prem players haven't been added to the prize pool yet, but in theory they will be added. So like I could play 7 players from Croatia under 23s, and I could technically win a Jude Bellingham or a Yamal or whatever the best prize is. Like, that is possible. I'm not saying it's probable, like it's very hard to do. Loads of players play under 23, like loads of users play it. It's a really fun comp. Again, barrier to entry isn't as crazy, right? Because it's classic comp, similar to champion. And yeah, if you can do your scouting and you're not spending big money on your Bellinghams and, like I said, your Mals, like the really known under 23 players, there is a knowledge gap and a skill gap in that. Like, if you can find some under 23 players that don't play for those clubs and maybe play in Croatia, for example, or wherever like the lesser league is, there's a lot of value in that, basically, because they all points are the same. Like, I've got an affiliation to Rijeka, for example. They've had some really good under 23 players over the years. Franjo Ivanovic, for example, who just moved to Benfica from USG, but he was initially at Rijeka. I still have his card somewhere. There he is. So yeah, I've had him for a while. So there's some fun sort of journeys to sort of follow in under 23. Like, I've followed Franjo across 3 different teams now, and I've still got his card, and he's still eligible for me. I won a Florian Wirtz last year, and luckily he's moved to the Premier League with Liverpool. Hopefully he'll be a great card for me this year. Lucas Højbjerg's one that I won last year, Norges London under 23 defender. He's now moved to Strasbourg for 15 million, and he's one of the best progressive passers in Europe or even the world for his age. So it's just, I've loved under 23. That's where I won the Super A Yamal last season in under 23 Super Rare. I love under 23s. I always will. It's one of the most fun comps on the game. And because it's not in season, you don't have to buy in season cards to play there. You can buy, the old versions of these, U23 players. So I think it's great. And then finally, we basically end on what All-Star is. So All-Star's been around again since the dawn of time on Sorare. It's been like the legacy comp. You can play cards from absolutely anywhere. As long as they have a fixture that weekend, they are eligible to play. They're SO7 again, and you can win cards from wherever. Of course, it's a classic comp. Now, not the problem, but like the issue is with All-Star, it's going to be so jam-packed with lineups and multiple lineups. Like, I can put 4 lineups in personally. Anyone can per scarcity. Like, there's going to be so many lineups. Like, for example, there's 11,000 players right now in limited All-Star. That's going to go to like 60, 70,000 in a few weeks, I think. Like, it's very, very hard to win good prizes from there. I'm not saying you can't do it. Like, top 20,000 get rewarded. Okay, albeit 100 essence, which is 1/10 of a card technically. You need 1,000 essence to craft a card. If you didn't know, but yeah, like All-Star is basically where you're gonna put every card that you've not used. Like, if you've put all your under 23 lineups in, if you've put all your champion lineups in, for example, or your in-season lineups, you end up with having to put all your leftovers. Basically, is for legacy players like me that's been around for years. Like, that is where I'll be playing all my remaining cards basically that don't get into my in-season lineups, because you can play one classic there, and obviously don't get into my champion and under 23 lineup. So yeah, I'm not hating on All-Star. I'm just saying it's very hard to sort of win from. Like, it's not easy. But again, you can use classic cards, so the barrier is as cheap as possible. Basically, you can play cards from anywhere in the world, like I said. And yeah, there is obviously a lot of fun to be had there. And I guess this is technically the final comp to mention, and it's Arena. Arena basically is, it's not SO7, it's SO5. You have to spend essence to enter it. It's basically like a sit and go in poker. You basically put your team in, you have 5 cards. It have to be under 260 L15 points. So as you can see, all these points here, you know, all 5 players have to be below or equal to 260 for you to enter that competition. And the beauty of it is you only play against 9 other players. So, you know, in All-Star, I'm playing against, you know, 50,000 other players. I can spend 100 essence. Okay, I can only win 500 essence, but I can win 250 or 150, you know, if I'm on the podium. But you're playing against so many less players, like it makes it viable. So yeah, if you are new to Sorare or even just new to Sorare 26 and have played previously, I do hope this video has helped you somewhat. I know we didn't go in depth on like scouting players and stuff. That's something I do mainly in my Discord. So I have a private Discord, which is part of the members section on my YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, there is a link in the description. I think it's like £1 a week to get involved. There's hundreds of you know, Sorare managers in there, all different shapes and sizes, which will, you know, help you along your, you know, your scouting and Sorare journey. Yeah, I really do hope the video did help you in that sense. Learn a little bit more about, you know, what Sorare 26 sort of offers. And yeah, I'm super excited for the season. Any questions, let me know in the comment section. I'll try my best to answer them as thoroughly as possible. Appreciate you lads. I'll see you guys in the next video.